I feel like they're constantly recruiting.
Join us.
Like getting your medical care dealt with through Amazon. Like, what? I don't understand.
This is Shrinks and Giggles, your no BS guide to navigating the pitfalls of modern mental health.
From AI therapy to self-diagnosis spirals, we're here to cut through the pop psych noise from your feed.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Michaela, your psychologist BFFs.
Let's dive in.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to Shrinks and Giggles.
What? Today we are talking about therapist shopping.
You may have heard that you can't find a good therapist, particularly hard to do unless you happen to contact a company that has 32,000 therapists at their avail. Then you might succeed. But today we're going to explore some alternatives to that. At least we hope.
Yes, exactly.
So statistically, I'd say about 25%, according to research, of people who go into therapy don't benefit from it, or at least say that they don't benefit from it. Our hope is that in talking about this a little bit more, we can, bridge that gap. We can help the 75% who do benefit, but we can also talk to the 25% who are like, yeah, I don't know. It's just not for me. Because I would make the argument that maybe it just means you haven't found a good therapist. But I think in order to do that, you need to like your therapist.
We're dancing around it a tad, but yeah, like what is therapy really? I think therapy is really great for helping you find self-awareness, have self-reflection, and have stronger communication and therefore better relationships with yourself and with those around you, and to live a meaningful and, powerful life in whatever goals, dreams, hopes that you have. That's my fairy tale version of therapy.
You need to feel a good alliance. All of the research supports a therapeutic alliance as paramount to anything else. If you have a good relationship with your therapist, if you like that person, if you feel safe with them, if you feel like they're helpful to you, then you're going to see an improvement in your mental health. So I found a list online of different types of bad therapists. So I thought we could talk a little bit about what those types might be. Although I got to say Bob Newhart probably is a few of these, so we can, mention that.
I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. I start thinking about being buried alive and I begin to panic.
Stop it!
I'm sorry?
Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T.
Yeah, well, and it taps onto a lot of different types of bad therapy, which, okay, yeah, that may circle back to why therapy gets a bad rap, why 25% of the population doesn't think that therapy works. I mean, the Gloria tapes are pretty freaking hysterical, and they also somewhat speak to the stereotype of mental health in that era as well.
I feel like you're telling me the only way you respect me as a human being if I'm aggressive and forceful and strong. Yeah, I feel like you couldn't even accept I'd be scared to death to cry in front of you. I feel like you'd laugh at me and call me a phony. I feel like you don't accept my weak side only when I'm yelling back at you or hollering at you.
You mustn't cry in my presence.
Well, I wouldn't even give you the satisfaction.
Say this again.
No.
Say this again.
So who's up first, Michaela?
I actually had a client once tell me that a previous therapist was a clock watcher. So the clock watcher is someone who frequently checks times or ends sessions abruptly. There's holding the boundary of the 50-minute or 55-minute session, and then there is just like, we're out of time, see you later.
What do you think about it?
I don't know, but I do know that the session is over, and so we'll have to pick this up next time.
It's tough for you to have to look at that watch, isn't it? It must be a little awkward. I see it.
I know you see it. I'm not trying to sneak it.
You can't. You're trying to do a little sneaky watch peek.
I'm not trying to do a sneaky watch peek. I'm trying to be efficient with our time.
Why didn't you put a clock behind me so you could have a clock, when the time's up? But
nevertheless, okay. It is over, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week.
So on the heels of the clock watcher, we have the echo chamber. This one is a really solid stereotype, I'd say, of a lot of very, very green therapists.
The AI therapist kind of did that as well. Just sort of repeated exactly what you said.
I'm having a lot of difficulty getting started on my assignments. I really care about school, but I just can't get anything done and can't get going.
It sounds like you're feeling really stuck and struggling to get started on your assignments, despite genuinely caring about school.
Then we have the autobiography, which is, a therapist that shares excessive personal stories with you that don't really connect to your situation.
My wife used to fart when she was nervous. She had all sorts of wonderful idiosyncrasies. She used to fart in her sleep. I'm sorry I shared that with you. One night it was so loud it woke the dog up. I can talk more than any shrink I ever seen in my life.
Anyway, then we have the avoider. So these are therapists who will dodge anything that is emotionally charged. When they see you start to become emotional, they will switch the subject entirely.
Yeah, quick right turn away from that.
I lost every account! Every account!
Did you just throw licorice at me?
Oh, I should have listened to my own instincts.
Well, I gave perfectly good advice. The execution of it is not my responsibility. I can't speak to that. Don't light matches and throw them, Claire. Claire, well, why don't we just calm down and take this bucket of lemons and make lemonade out of it? I don't know if you remember or not, but I am starting to launch this new modality of 3-minute sessions on the web.
No, right. I know all about that. Then you need help launching it. So that's what this is about, right?
Now you're available.
Yeah, right. I'm available now because you gave me the most ridiculous advice in the world, and I was stupid enough to take it. So now you have me, free and clear, to launch your silly little ridiculous web therapy internet service. Oh, well, you got another thing coming.
Then we have the quick fixer. So they're going to jump right into solutions. They're going to list off all these different ways that you can fix your life without really fully understanding.
Yeah, I think you should get divorced as soon as possible. Like before lunch, like immediately, like right now. Like when you leave here, don't go home. You go straight to the courthouse and you find a judge. You make that judge grant you a divorce right there on the spot.
And then a close relative of that is the invalidator. They don't describe your experience in a way that affirms why you might have been having the emotion that you're having and giving space for that emotion. Bob Newhart definitely does this.
Stop it or I'll bury you alive in a box!
Yeah, and then maybe one of the last ones is the sleeper. That's like number one. You don't want your therapist to fall asleep on you.
Might, tap dance with the invalidator. You're invalidating their entire emotional experience by saying it's so boring, I will fall asleep now.
That is a rough one. That's more to do with the therapist than you.
Yes, the therapist needs to take some time to evaluate their self-care, to figure out, what's going on for them and try to make sure that they're getting better sleep. There are a lot of different types of therapy. There are a lot of different ways to access your emotions. If you know intuitively that there's a particular angle you need to start to access those, then you can pick that. The therapeutic alliance, from my perspective, wouldn't necessarily be as important necessarily in dance therapy, music therapy, that kind of thing. I see those as adjunctive ways to access catharsis, to access your emotional release. Art therapy, I think if you have a good art therapist who you feel comfortable with, that can be really helpful because they can give you prompts that are going to be a little bit deeper that you might feel safer with. that you can explore those things. You may really like the idea of lying on a couch and talking about your experience. You may really like the idea of exploring your emotions through structured activities or music, or improve your self-care with greater self-affirmations, meditation-based work. So it's about exploring that a little bit. Okay, you have a general idea. What next?
How do you find a good therapist? Where should you be looking? Well, I think the big ones, right? Psychology Today is maybe one of the better ways because there's little bios that people write. You can filter it down. You can see who accepts insurance, who you like their biopic, so that can help to some degree. Joining, groups on Facebook, Discord, Slack, Reddit. There's also yoga studios, meditation centers, nutritionists, physical therapists, right? Listen to podcasts. And if you like the personality of therapists on the podcast, then contact them at Aspire Therapy Center.
You might see online about finding a therapist. One of the things that's talked about a lot is a free consultation. So while I think there can be utility in that, I think that it also runs the risk of you as a potential client not knowing what to ask, the therapist feeling rushed, pressured to say the right thing, do the right thing in a very compressed amount of time. So you aren't necessarily getting a great sampling of that person. A lot of people who are offering free consultations tend to have fewer clients in general. And there might be a reason for that, right? So, there's that to consider as well. And the other thing that happens with free consultations is that if you aren't quite ready for therapy, you might find that you share a lot of information about yourself in an hour, and then you are absolutely terrified to go back because you have just, ripped the Band-Aid off, and with it came the scab, maybe, which is kind of gross. But nonetheless, you might feel a bit like that. Like, how do I clot? That you're too exposed.
Yeah. And also, therapy is a commitment to yourself, and it's going to maybe, just like if you were to get a gym membership or, go to the doctor, it's the same thing. You have to pay and invest in yourself to see the change.
So in talking about free consultations, the other thing that comes up is that a lot of people think about using insurance for therapy. And while I would never dissuade someone from using insurance if they need to, particularly if they have what I would deem to be a medical version of a mental health concern. So for sure, if there's difficulties with addiction, intensive eating disorders, suicidal thoughts that are so intense, you are perpetually pondering acting on them, really dangerous self-harming behaviors, if any of those things are at play, then absolutely, it makes sense to me that you would use your insurance and that you do want to use your insurance. I think for a lot of other mental health concerns, and for that, I mean anything from panic attacks to parenting concerns to persistent anxiety to not feeling like you're getting what you want out of life, to feeling a bit aimless.
Attachment issues, interpersonal relationship issues.
Yeah, that there's a lot of space there that therapy addresses that, if you use insurance, one, you're going to end up walking out of your session with a diagnosis on record with an insurance company, which I've personally seen impact people when they are trying to do things like get disability insurance, get life insurance, those kinds of things. It does follow you. Two, it limits your scope of care, right? If you go in and you end up getting a diagnosis of a particular kind and then those symptoms go away, you can't work with that therapist anymore. Now, as a psychologist, obviously I know, and I'm sure Michaela does as well, that we try our best to work with what people are giving us. But there are times that, yeah, literally there is not a medical reason to seek treatment. So along those lines, it's important to invest in yourself. And there are people who get regular massages. There are people who go and get manicures or facials or all of these kinds of things. And we don't look to our insurance to pay for those things, but we do think of them as self-care. Not everybody needs to be in therapy every week, and you certainly don't need to be in therapy every week for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
If you want, that's a choice. And that may speak to the type of therapist you're looking for as well. If you're looking for, a shorter term approach, I don't know, Michaela, how do you feel about this?
Pretty like goal focused, solution focused, kind of clear, probably CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, right?
Yeah, totally. I think if you have a distinct goal, if it's like reduce binge eating or it's related to, even improving your sleep hygiene, like you have difficulties with insomnia or you have something very tangible. You're struggling with parenting your 3-year-old and then they developmentally finally start to grow out of the tantrums at 4.5, then okay, you might not want therapy anymore. You might not feel like you need it and you don't. So I think it's okay to think of it as an investment as well. So, okay, then you go into the therapy space. You're like, all right, maybe I have a list of 2, 3 people who seem like potential options. You give them a call, you schedule an appointment, you go and you see what happens. If you experience any significant red flags, you take some time afterward to really debrief and just evaluate how you're feeling about it.
Absolutely.
So along those lines, yes, you may find that you feel in love with your therapist because after all, possibly for the first time ever in your life, you might be talking about your feelings and feeling like somebody actually cares, which is, a thing for sure. And it's really powerful. But a good therapist is not going to take it further than that.
We met in therapy.
Group therapy.
I'm Morgan's therapist.
Oh.
So creating those boundaries, definitely, if you have someone who is actively violating your boundaries, therapists who are calling you and not checking in on a crisis, but just calling, then that can be a red flag. It can take a few sessions to know if this therapist is a good therapist or a bad therapist. However, if they trigger you in that first session in any notable dramatic way, they're probably not the right person.
I would second that finding someone that you feel comfortable with in the room and that you feel like you can be open to, especially if you're new to therapy, then that's going to elicit, some change, some growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would argue it's easier to find a good therapist after you established a therapeutic alliance with someone historically because you know a little bit better what that process looks like. You're a little bit more introspective yourself and you can say, okay, wait a second. I just had a session with someone and I realized that when they made a particular facial expression, they were not comfortable with something I said, or they made me feel shame about something that I need to process. And I can't go there with that person. And it'll be a quick blink and then you can find somebody else. And so at Aspire, we have a lot of different therapists with a lot of different orientations and personal experiences with that in mind. And we try to provide a lot of diversity and we try to meet you where you're at in our company. And I hope that other therapists do that as well, in groups. When they start getting huge, I don't know. I don't know at that point what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's probably a
Something
little bit challenging to really know what 30,000 providers are doing.
It's the mental health Borg. I feel like they're constantly recruiting. They're like, join us, be another
come
one
be
of us.
with
Do you not get
us.
those emails all the time? All the
Yes.
time.
Yes, I get reached out on LinkedIn, on email, everywhere. They're like, be a part of the team.
It's like getting your medical care dealt with through Amazon. You're like, what? I don't understand. So knowing your goals, knowing yourself, and then maybe the other thing that we haven't talked about is taking some time to reflect on the people you like to talk to about your problems, or if you had an idea of who that could be, who would it be? You know, those are good starting points so that you don't find that kind of like dating, you're sucked into the wrong match. You know, in dating, I might call it like toxic chemistry or something like that. In therapy, I might call it happenstance. They were available and that's the therapist you ended up with.
I think you can be really honest with yourself. Don't let any sort of like judgment or thoughts on what your therapist should be like or how that interaction should be. What do you really feel comfortable with in the room? And you're not going to hurt anyone's feelings if you come in and you have a session and you don't really vibe and then you know, maybe try to find someone else. It's not going to hurt the therapist's feelings, or it shouldn't. It's a really vulnerable place, too. If you don't feel like your therapist likes you or you don't feel like you like your therapist, then you're not going to be very open to talking about any of your emotions, feelings, thoughts, actions in a meaningful way that's going to get, you know, anything out of the experience or the interaction.
If you're someone who's sitting on the fence about whether or not you need a therapist, I would say it's a similar fence to the one that you sit on when you're debating if you need a significant other. There's a lot of fish in the sea. You can swipe right when you're interested in someone. You can do the same thing with therapists and see if you find one who meets your needs and who is the person you need them to be when you need them there.
And we here at Aspire can help you find a therapist right for you. Thanks for listening. This has been really fun. Tune in next time
when we're going to be talking about social media and its impact on your mental health. And if you're looking for a therapist, check us out at aspiretherapycenter.com. We have therapists available here in California and a little bit even in Florida.
Follow us on YouTube and Instagram, and like and subscribe and share with your friends. We'll see you next time. This has been Shrinks and Giggles.